U.S., Israel, Iran war, the conflict is still ongoing and unpredictable. The war started on February 28, 2026, when the United States and Israel launched coordinated strikes on Iranian military and nuclear facilities after diplomatic talks collapsed. Iran then responded with missile and drone attacks on Israel, U.S. bases, and Gulf countries, expanding the conflict across the region. Below is what analysts and geopolitical experts generally expect from the war at this stage. 1. The war may continue for weeks or months cross swords. Right now there is no clear winner. The United States and Israel have strong air power and technology. Iran still has missiles, drones, proxy forces, and regional allies. Because of this balance, many analysts expect a long war of strikes and counterstrikes, not a quick victory. 2. The conflict could expand across the Middle East globe, showing Europe, Africa. The war is already spreading beyond Iran and Israel. Iran has targeted or threatened areas connected to U.S. forces or allies, including Gulf countries, shipping routes, oil infrastructure. Some missiles and drones have already reached neighboring states and energy facilities. Possible next fronts could include Lebanon through Hezbollah, Iraq, Syria, Red Sea shipping routes. If more countries get involved, the war could become a regional Middle East war. 3. Oil and global economy may be affected. Fuel pump. One of the biggest risks is the Strait of Hormuz, where about 20% of global oil passes. Iran has threatened shipping in that area, which could cause higher oil prices, global inflation, economic instability. Some energy infrastructure in the region has already been targeted during the conflict. 4. Cyber war and intelligence warfare will grow. Laptop computer. This war is not only missiles and bombs. There are also cyber attacks on infrastructure, hacking of communications and networks, propaganda, and information warfare. Both sides have already used cyber operations to disrupt systems and spread messages. 5. Possible negotiations or ceasefire handshake. There are conflicting signals about diplomacy. U.S. leaders say talks may be happening. Iranian officials deny negotiations. This means the war could end through ceasefire negotiations, limited military victory, regime pressure inside Iran. But none of these has happened yet. 6. Worst-case scenario, wider global war warning. If other big powers become directly involved, the war could escalate. Countries watching closely include Russia, China, Turkey, Gulf states. However, most global powers are currently trying to avoid a full world war. White heavy checkmark in simple terms. Day 24 outlook. Possible outcomes. Keycap 1 long regional war in the Middle East. Keycap 2 ceasefire after heavy damage. Keycap 3 political change inside Iran. Keycap 4 oil crisis affecting the world economy. The U.S., Israel, Iran war is still in a very uncertain stage. Historically, wars like this usually end in only a few predictable ways. Based on military strategy and past conflicts, here are the 5 most likely ways this war could end. 1. Negotiated ceasefire. Most common ending. Handshake. This is the most common way modern wars end. After weeks or months of fighting, both sides become exhausted economically and militarily. Then international mediators step in. Possible mediators: Qatar, Turkey, United Nations, China. The result may include Iran limiting nuclear activities, Israel stopping strikes, U.S. lifting or easing some sanctions. But the tension would still remain, meaning the conflict could restart later. 2. Long shadow war. Very possible. Globe showing Europe, Africa. Another likely outcome is that the war does not fully end, but turns into a long hidden conflict. Direct war stops, but indirect attacks continue through allies. Groups that could be involved include Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthis in Yemen, militias in Iraq and Syria. This would mean occasional missile attacks, cyber warfare, covert operations, similar to the long rivalry between Iran and Israel over the past 20 years. 3. Major regional warfare. If the war spreads, it could become a large Middle East war. Possible escalation. Hezbollah fully joins the war from Lebanon. Fighting expands into Syria or Iraq. Oil routes in the Strait of Hormuz are attacked. If that happens, global powers could be drawn in, including Russia, China, This would severely affect the world economy and oil prices. 4. Internal political crisis in Iran. Classical building. Sometimes wars trigger internal political change. If heavy damage and sanctions weaken the government in Iran, there could be protests, military divisions, leadership changes. This could reshape Iran's foreign policy and end the conflict. However, this outcome is unpredictable and risky. 5. Limited military victory. Cross swords. One side could achieve a limited strategic victory. For example, the United States and Israel destroy key Iranian military or nuclear facilities, or Iran successfully damages major Israeli or U.S. assets. Then both sides declare victory. The ability of Iran to resist powerful countries like the United States and Israel is not because Iran is stronger in technology or weapons. Instead, Iran uses a different kind of military strategy. Here are the key reasons experts often mention. 1. Asymmetric warfare strategy. Cross swords. Iran does not fight powerful enemies in a direct conventional war. Instead, it uses what military experts call asymmetric warfare, meaning it fights in ways that reduce the advantage of stronger militaries. Examples include missiles and drones instead of expensive fighter jets, naval harassment in narrow waters, proxy groups instead of direct army confrontation. This strategy allows Iran to fight a stronger enemy at lower cost. 2. Network of regional allies, proxy forces, globe showing Europe, Africa. Iran has built influence through allied groups across the Middle East. Some of the most known ones include Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthis in Yemen, militias in Iraq, armed groups operating in Syria. Because of these alliances, Iran can pressure its enemies from many directions, not just from inside Iran. 3. Geography advantage. World map. Iran's geography makes invasion very difficult. Important factors: large territory, mountains and deserts, strategic position near the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz is extremely important because a large portion of global oil shipments pass through it. If Iran threatens that route, it affects the global economy. 4. Large missile and drone arsenal. Rocket. Iran has invested heavily in ballistic missiles and drones rather than expensive air forces. These weapons allow Iran to strike targets from long distance, overwhelm missile defense systems, respond quickly to attacks. This makes it difficult for enemies to attack Iran without expecting retaliation. 5. Long experience under sanctions. Factory. Iran has been under international sanctions for decades. Because of this, it developed local weapons production, independent military industries, economic survival systems. This makes Iran more resilient to economic pressure than many countries. 6. Psychological and political warfare. Brain. Iran also uses media influence, cyber operations, strategic messaging. These tools help it shape regional opinion and deter enemies. White heavy checkmark. In simple terms, Iran survives against stronger enemies because it does not fight the same type of war. Instead, it uses indirect warfare, regional alliances, geography, missiles and drones, economic resilience. The conflict between Iran and Israel did not start recently. It has been building for more than 40 years, and the roots go back to a major historical event. 1. The turning point, the Iranian Revolution. Fire. Before 1979, Iran and Israel actually had friendly relations. Iran was ruled by Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the Shah of Iran. His government cooperated with Israel economically and militarily. But in 1979, the Iranian Revolution overthrew the Shah. The new leader Ruhollah Khomeini created an Islamic government and declared that Israel was an illegitimate state. From that moment, Iran and Israel became ideological enemies. 2. The Palestinian issue. Palestinian territories. One of the main reasons for the hostility is Iran's support for Palestinians. Iran strongly opposes Israel's control over Palestinian territories and supports groups fighting Israel. Some groups linked to Iran include Hamas, Hezbollah. These groups have fought multiple conflicts with Israel. Meanwhile, Israel views Iranian support for these groups as a direct security threat. 3. The nuclear program dispute. Radioactive. Another major conflict issue is Iran's nuclear program. Israel fears that Iran could eventually develop nuclear weapons. Because of this concern, Israel has carried out covert operations against Iranian nuclear facilities. Iranian scientists have been assassinated. Cyber attacks such as Stuxnet targeted Iran's nuclear systems. Iran says its nuclear program is for peaceful energy, but the distrust remains very high. 4. The Shadow War, 2010-2020s, Detective. For many years, Iran and Israel fought a hidden war instead of direct battles. This included cyber attacks, assassinations, airstrikes in Syria, attacks on ships in the Persian Gulf. Neither country officially declared war, but both sides were constantly clashing. 5. The risk of direct war warning. Because the rivalry kept growing, analysts warned that eventually the conflict could become a direct war involving Israel, Iran, possibly the United States. That is why the current tensions have been so dangerous. White heavy checkmark in simple terms. The Iran-Israel conflict exists because of three major issues. Keycap 1 ideology after the 1979 Iranian Revolution. Keycap 2 support for Palestinian resistance groups. Keycap 3 fear of Iran developing nuclear weapons. These issues have kept the two countries in conflict for decades.